Welcome to the Explainer. So for roughly 2,000 years, the Christian ritual of the Eucharist, the sharing of bread and wine, has been absolutely central to the faith. But today, we're diving into a massive, structural paradigm shift that's been documented by the San Carlos Graduate School of Theology. We are essentially tracing a fascinating journey, how a static internal ritual evolved into a dynamic, roaring engine for global and social action. Now, what's really wild here is how Pope Francis completely shatters the rigid, traditional view of this ancient ritual. The Church is not a toll house, it is the house of the Father. The Eucharist is not a prize for the perfect, but a powerful medicine and nourishment for the weak. For centuries, there was this subtle tendency to view the sacrament as a reward for good behavior, almost like an exclusive VIP club for the spiritually flawless. But the source material emphasizes a radical pivot. The Church isn't some toll house demanding a fee for entry. The Eucharist is medicine. It's literally meant for the bruised, the broken, and the struggling. Section 1. The Blueprint of Love. Let's look at why this is so much more than just a ritual. To really get this, we have to start at the very beginning, the Last Supper, and look at the divine mandate that serves as the foundation for this entire shift. Because before it was this highly institutionalized ceremony with massive high altars and golden chalices, it was just a meal shared among friends on the night before an execution. Jesus commanded his followers to continue this practice, and the early Christians understood this mandate as anamnesis. Now, this is an ancient concept that means making a past event actively present in the here and now. It is absolutely not merely recalling a memory. You're not just doing a historical reenactment or hitting play on some mental documentary of the past. It's a dynamic, living presence. The sacrifice and the profound love of that specific moment are dragged right into the present second, and it demands a real-time response from the community experiencing it today.
And this brings us to another brilliant concept that illustrates the true motivation behind the ritual: kenosis. This is the radical, self-emptying love modeled by Jesus. The sources point out a crucial detail. Before the bread was ever broken at that final meal, Jesus actually washed his disciples' feet, which at the time was strictly the job of a servant. That kenosis, that total, complete emptying of ego and status for the sake of serving others, that is actual DNA of the Eucharist. It's fundamentally about taking the form of a servant.
Moving right along to Section 2, the evolution of mission. Let's take a quick historical journey. If we zoom out and look across human history, we can clearly see this incredible journey of how the Church understood its ultimate purpose. Back in the 1st century, mission was pretty straightforward. It was simply spreading the faith through grassroots communities and, quite often, facing martyrdom. But jump forward to the Middle Ages, and suddenly mission becomes heavily entangled with imperial conquest and mass, sometimes even forced conversions. Then, fast forward to the 1960s with the Second Vatican Council, and we see a massive, much-needed pivot back toward intrinsic dialogue, really recognizing the value in the modern world in seeking mutual understanding. And finally, in 2013, Pope Francis redefines it all over again with a fiery, urgent call to go forth. It is a night and day difference, really. Pre-Vatican II mission was intensely focused on converting outsiders, physically planting churches in foreign lands, and maintaining very rigid, exclusive structures. But the post-Vatican II mission shifted radically. It became all about internal renewal, open dialogue, sharing, and a universal call. The mission literally moved from conquering foreign lands to this shared, community-driven invitation where absolutely every single member of the Church has a vital role to play. Which brings us to Section 3, a church that goes forth, the messy hospital. This is where we hit the radical modern shift proposed by Pope Francis, who essentially demands that the Church leave its comfort zone. The whole concept of going forth isn't just some polite suggestion. It's a structural mandate. Francis delivers this incredibly powerful rejection of ecclesial introversion, stating, "I prefer a church which is bruised, hurting, and dirty because it has been out in the streets." The source material makes a really compelling argument here. A church closed up safely inside its own walls is actually a sick church. Instead, it's meant to be a field hospital for the marginalized, getting heavily involved in the messy, incredibly complicated realities of everyday human suffering. Okay, so here is the million-dollar question. If mission is now all about going forth into the streets, how exactly does an ancient indoor ritual fit in? It's the ultimate puzzle, isn't it? I mean, how does eating bread and drinking wine on a Sunday morning actually connect to getting your hands dirty in the modern world? How do we bridge that massive gap between the altar and the pavement? Let's answer that in Section 4, the Sacrament of Mission.
It's all about fuel for action.
As it turns out, the Eucharist is actually the engine that drives this modern social action. It isn't a retreat from the world, it's the exact thing that powers our engagement with it. For a really long time, the default mode was just individual piety, isolated worship, personal adoration, this highly private me and God relationship. But true interpersonal communion is about nourishing the community, actively breaking down walls, and establishing a deeply shared bond of love. The sources stress over and over that the ritual is not a private, individualistic event. When you receive that self-emptying love we called kenosis earlier, it is fundamentally about transforming communities into instruments of social justice. You simply cannot consume a sacrament of universal love and then remain totally indifferent to your neighbor. Pope John Paul II really hit the nail on the head when he said, "The Eucharistic celebration does not stop at the church door." And here is exactly why this matters to you. Receiving the sacrament is meant to equip everyday people to take that living presence, that anamnesis, directly out into society. The ritual is just the starting line. The true celebration happens when you cross the threshold and actually enter the world. Finally, Section 5, Empowering the Laity, or the incredible power of the everyday believer.
So, who is actually carrying all this out? Who is doing the heavy lifting? Well, this entire theological shift is designed entirely to empower the everyday believers, the folks who aren't wearing collars or living in monasteries. We are talking about the number one rank in the church, the laity, which acts as the ultimate majority force. The lay faithful are the absolute majority. You are the unique individuals perfectly positioned to be the leaven in the temporal world. You are the ones who are actually living out there in those messy, dirty streets that Pope Francis was talking about.
And if we look specifically at the Filipino laity highlighted in the source research, we see the exact modern arenas where this unifying spirituality of the Eucharist is desperately needed. We're talking about families, youth, agriculture, politics, education, medicine, economics, even arts and literature. These aren't just secular distractions or mundane day jobs. These are the actual mission fields. This is exactly where the church goes forth.
Because the ultimate goal here is promoting harmony and unity in a very fractured world. By internalizing that self-emptying kenosis, the laity takes a 2,000-year-old meal and turns it into a literal blueprint for fixing real-world divisions. Whether you happen to be a teacher, a politician, a doctor, or a farmer, the communion you experience on Sunday literally becomes the structural framework for how you build your relationships and your systems on Monday.
So we leave you with this. Will you stay safely inside the toll house, or are you ready to go forth into the messy streets? The blueprint of love has been given to us. The engine is revved up and running. The only question left is, where are you going to take it?